Are we on?
I think so. Are you ready? I am so excited to be here with you today, Tiffany D. Jackson, my beloved. Thank you for asking me to come and
Thank you
fill
for
in.
stepping in. Everyone, Dee was so gracious to fill in for Maureen because she had a family emergency. So we're sending a lot of good energy towards her in dealing, especially dealing with anything during this pandemic. So, but we are here to talk about books, particularly my lovely.
White smoke, white smoke. I am so excited to be able to talk to you about this book for so many reasons. One, I've been at all of your events this week trolling you because I love you. Number one, this is what we do for our loves. But
Right.
two, I just love all of your books. You know, I've been a super fan since Allegedly. They always wreck me, scare me, make me have major feelings, and remind me of the power of reading and why I love to read and how it makes me escape. It makes me feel like I'm 13 and 14 again, falling in love with a book. And so
Oh,
you
yeah.
did that.
Thank you.
And I want you, for the audience, to let everyone know, just give us a little bit of background about White Smoke. Give your like quick pitch. It's only been out for a day, 2 days. So I know people are just getting their copies, but what's in store for them? And look at this cover. I mean, it is just
It is
amazing.
gorgeous. So White Smoke is about a girl named Marigold and her newly blended family who moved to a dilapidated city in the Midwest into a brand new renovated home. But Marigold believes that the home may actually be haunted, but it may be something far sinister than that because the city has a lot of secrets. So we were pitching it as Get Out meets The Haunting of Hill House. Very big shoes to live up to, but I feel like we really hit the mark there in terms of the hauntings you feel, in terms of the social commentary that you will read. So you just hit a lot that's in there. So I feel like it's a perfect sort of, it's not that scary. I just keep on saying that. I'm like, it's not that scary, but then
Nobody believes you, Tiffany.
know, because I did kind of go out of my way to like make sure that it was
You
scary.
did. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about scare factors, thrillers, horror, and what drew you to this genre. Because my childhood nickname is Chicken Little, like literally about the little chick who is scared that the world is falling apart, the sky's falling. I'm scared of everything. And very rarely do I like to have myself frazzled. And whenever I read a Tiffany D. Jackson novel, I'm up all night, I'm frazzled. You know what happened when I read Grown?
Yes, I did get like the middle of the night text messages. I was like, girl, go back to sleep. Like,
You did. I was texting her from like midnight to 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't stop. And it's the same with White Smoke. And I want to talk a little bit about, there are some people who run straight into the teeth of like scary books, horror, thriller. And then there are others that are like scared, like me, that are scared of their own shadow. And I want to talk about you and how you developed this love of being scared and scaring people. Like, where did it come from? Talk to me about young Tiffany and your developing your appetite for horror books.
um, awesome question. So I think I've been in love with horror since I was 4 years old. Like I think the earliest horror movie that I honestly remember is Child's Play, which is the Chucky movie. And I watched that far too young at a time where I had dolls. So, you know, I probably shouldn't have been watching that, but you know, what you do at your cousin's house. But anyway, I've just always been in love with horror. I love like the tension, the suspense, like the way it actually has a physical, like your body has a physical reaction to something that's not real. And the way it sort of like kind of keys up all of your senses to the point where you just feel like there is the killer or the ghost around every single corner. So I think that that's kind of where my love of it started really young. But then, you know, I kept on growing and I kept on reading. The first like horror book that was like put in my hand was, you know, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. But then
That's right.
right? And that
Yes.
was but I kept taking it out. I wouldn't read any other books. So my teacher, there was this classic book fair. My teacher literally walked me over to the table where R.L. Stein books are. And I literally just devoured them. I mean, I felt like I was rich. Of course, whenever you bring your little money to Scholastic Book Fair, you're like, yeah, I was like, oh, let me just get all this.
I used to have a check. And my teacher could fill out the amount once I had selected my so I was like, blank check. You're spoiled. So R.L. Stein, R.L. Stein is amazing. I read all of the Fear Street books. Goosebumps, I felt I didn't get into those only because I think I was a little bit too old once I discovered him to go back to Goosebumps, but Fear Street, I read every single one.
Yeah, me too. I went from there to like Christopher Pike, but then I skipped.
Christopher Pike was a little bit low-key racy, okay? So my mom wasn't feeling Christopher Pike because there was more kissing than Fear Street.
Yeah, there was a little, I was like, but
yes, and then murder, like literally.
I was like, this is like, there's like kissing. Then I literally went straight to like Stephen King. And, my grandmother would have all these Mary Higgins Clark's novels like laying around. I would start reading those because there wasn't really any books in between that I was really interested in that brought out kind of the mystery for me. I would read like Nancy Drew and I was like, that's it? Like that
Nancy Drew was very dry. Let's be real. And the Hardy Boys, they were really dry. They weren't really in danger of anything happening to them.
Which, you kind of think about, sometimes you think about your surroundings. You think about kind of like, the environment, growing up in Brooklyn. It's kind of like, we didn't have those problems. And granted, I actually had a very, sheltered childhood. My family definitely bubble wrapped me a lot of ways, but it was clear bubble wrap. I still could see these problems. And so I think I wanted something that I could potentially relate to. So I grew up just making horror movies. In high school, my senior thesis was a horror story. It was like a killer guy in like a mask or something. My senior thesis in film school was a horror movie. My senior thesis in grad school was a horror movie. I ended up doing like the horror movie circuit there too. So I always kind of had horror in me. So even though like I was writing all these thriller books, all of these, I was still like, I literally would just go home at the end of the day and watch a horror movie. Like,
I just think of, and your mom's here, shout out to Miss Jackson. Hello, Miss Jackson. Hi. Did you try to scare people in your home? Like you said, your grandmother also had scary books. Like, were you that kid that was trying to scare people?
No.
Okay, because I was about to say, you grew up in a Caribbean household, and I just know that just did not fly. You jumped.
No, I guess I never even thought about like scaring anybody. Of
course you didn't.
I think because I was too scared that, I scared them and then I get in trouble. And I hated getting in trouble. So that was just like an absolute no. But no, I didn't really play practical jokes.
You wanted to live.
I wanted to live.
I didn't either. Like I loved Halloween. We have October coming. This is the perfect spooky read for October. And I loved all of that stuff, witches and, ghosts and all of these things in theory, right? Like Casper. Yeah. That's the ghost. Casper, the friendly ghost, is the one that I wanted to see. I wasn't trying to see anything scary, but I was in love with this idea of the haunted house and this idea of being afraid, but like still having like safety. Right. So because I was scared of my own shadow as a kid. And so I remember the first horror movie I saw was The Birds. Which was way too much. Should not have done it. My father tried to warn me, but I was one of those kids that would just run straight into the problem and then be scared sleeping with the lights on. And the people under the stairs, which you thought, when you said in your other event, was just like, oh, that was fun.
Yes.
Fun.
Yes. That was a fun movie overall. People Under the Stairs, which, some people don't remember that. And I remember it clearly. I watched it like a bunch of times. And so, watching Candyman brought back memories of watching People Under the Stairs because it was that kind of like cool I don't know, movie to watch. But yeah,
Right.
anyway.
I struggled. I mean, even with things like Bloody Mary, Candyman, all of those things were so scary and amazing. But I think I was a kid. I like it now. I feel more of that adrenaline rush. Like when I read one of your books, when I was reading White Smoke and like descending in to this house and into the feeling of being afraid, the adrenaline, you start sweating,
Yeah.
all of those things. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you build suspense and what tools you use as a writer to create and evoke that feeling. Because I'm reading a book. The book is paper, right? It's not like I'm in the house, but I'm scared and I'm nervous. And I want to know how you do that through literature. How do you evoke those feelings and set a mood?
So I feel like first, I feel like environment, like setting, is very much a character, and it's like something that you could definitely use to make sure that your characters, they blend together. Basically, having your character in a very interesting environment just all immediately adds tension. When I always tell people, like, how about you just open up your entire book like people just having coffee in the middle of like a graveyard, immediate tension, because it's like, why the hell are they in a graveyard? So it's sort of just like building upon that. That's one like way. But also, and I guess because I still don't like 100% know what I'm doing, um
Okay.
we're like
That
5 books
doesn't feel
in.
true, but okay, I'll let you have it.
It's like we're like several books in now, like several years in. I'm just like, yeah, I have no clue what I'm doing here. Yeah. But the skill of horror, like that is something to be like, I'm very envious of horror writers. It was one of the reasons why it took so long for like a book like this to come out for me, because I was scared of actually writing it. I was scared of the pivot. I was scared of like, how do I master, making sure that people have that fear. And so that was something that I was just kind of like trying to play with. One of the things I always tell people in terms of like my craft class is to make sure that every single chapter ends on some type of a cliffhanger. And I actually didn't realize until I had an event with R.L. Stine that he did that. And I'm like, I literally just completely ripped off your entire, steez, but it's fine. So there's something about making sure that, the tension is still there, and also making sure that the person still doesn't get what they're looking for
Okay.
at all times.
At
Like,
all times.
kind of like dangling a carrot in front of the donkey and just making sure that this person, not that I'm calling anyone an ass, but I'm just saying, like, dangling that carrot throughout the entire book makes people want to keep on reading.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating to think about that. And I think the way that you describe, the way that you create anxiety, the character has an anxiety and questions things, and then we start questioning them too. We really feel like the camera lens is right up, zoomed in on everything, and it sets a complete mood. And that's what I do love about horror. And what I loved about reading R.L. Stine, what I love about your books is that I feel like all this stuff is going to happen to me. and that's why I'm completely shook. Always. And make sure everyone, I have a couple more questions for her, of course, but please put your questions in the question box so that we can get to them in a couple of minutes. But I want to talk too about, you brought up R.L. Stine. I know that at other events you talked about Hitchcock. There's also like Agatha Christie, there's Jordan Peele, there's all of these great writers and story makers and filmmakers creating horror in this genre, which has very particular audience and rules. I want to talk about scare factor. Right?
Yeah.
I'm scared of everything. So everything's at a 5 for me. I'm like always shook. And I want to test you and see, because I want to know what other scary things would you write about, and like what would your scare factor be? See how scared you are. Okay. Out of 1 to 5, 5 being the scariest, 1 being not scary.
Right.
How do you feel about like Ouija boards? That kind of thing.
I'm in the 3 category just because, I feel like, that's never a good idea. Anytime you see a Ouija board, it's like, like why? Like,
right.
Why would you do that? It's kind of like a dumb decision always. So I'm always like in the midst of it because you just never know. And I do believe in spirits. I do believe in ghosts. So I feel like there is opportunity for people to come in. Like there's too many stories not to. So yeah, I'm in like the 3 category.
Oh, see, I'm at a 5. because I grew up in a very religious household, and you do not mess with the spirits, honey. Like,
Yeah.
just don't call them into the home. You know what I mean? Like, you're asking for trouble, but I'm scared of everything. What about like dead bodies?
I've never seen one before
Of course.
in person. So
So theoretically.
so theoretically, I feel like I would be at a 3, maybe 4. I guess maybe because like I've been to enough funerals
Right.
where, I know they're not scary. I know they're not gonna like come up and just like, tap me and be like, hey, what's up? Like, I know that. Have I ever found one before? No. So it's always kind of like, yeah, 3, 4. All right, let's go with that. Yeah.
I'm gonna stick at my 5. Um, what about like, would you, for money, spend the night in the house that you created? Okay, so like thinking about
Oh,
a
yeah.
house, a haunted house.
Uh-huh.
You would spend the night in the house you created.
Yes, I would. I mean, would I sleep? No.
You'll be up all night looking around.
I'd be up all night, but like Black people just in general, like the moment we hear just anything in another room, we just all like kind of freeze and just listen. And that's exactly what would be happening. I'd just be sitting there doing that all night. So yes, I would totally, and I also feel like I have like slept at like haunted houses before, or I knew something else was there. So I guess maybe a part of me is also like, you've done that before. You might as well just do it again.
Okay. Like last night, I was going through the book, rereading passages again, and something in my other bedroom, in my other room, I was like, oh no, I heard it, and I turned. You mute the TV. And I was like, and it was literally like a box with tape, like sort of like stripped.
Like, yeah.
Because I had opened it earlier, and I was like, something's in here. I turned on every light, and I left it on for like 2 hours and waited for the noise again. And then I saw the tape sort of like loosen, and I was like, oh, I was sweating. It's scary. Like, I just don't have what it takes to make it. Last 2. What about like spiders, insects, snakes, that kind of situation, little creepy crawlers?
So big 5 for spiders. I don't do spiders. I also don't do those. I think they're called like silverfish.
Yeah.
My parents, like, I don't know what is going on in their garage, but it's like always been like the hub of like all the spiders. And so every time I can't even go in there, I have to ask like I have to call my dad to be like, can you come downstairs and get me, basically. Like I just won't do it. So spiders, big time 5. Big 5.
Big time 5. Okay. And I know you don't mess with Chucky and dolls in general. Like, okay. I meant to send you a photo last night because literally last week I was on the subway and there was a man across from me with a walker and he had a Chucky doll, and Chucky looked real battered, and I took a photo because I was so shook that he had a Chucky doll sitting there, and I was like, I think I should move because
that's like maybe a good time to, I don't know if maybe it's an ad for something, because I know the series is coming or something like that. So
maybe he's messing with people.
Remember like when the Stephen King's It was coming out, and all of a sudden all these clowns were just popping up out of nowhere. Like that's it. I don't do clowns. Number 5.
Oh, why though? I don't do clowns either because of it, and I still jump into bed without jump into bed so my legs don't come next to the side of the bed. Yeah, I still do that every night. But why don't you like clowns?
I had a bit of a traumatic experience with my best friend that had to do with clowns, and right around the time Stephen King's It came out, and ever since we don't do clowns at all. All.
I don't think it's funny either. Like,
no, they're not funny. It's just kind of like, what? Like, why?
Why are you here? Like, why do you have all that caking makeup on your face?
Yes, exactly.
I can't see you. Like, I don't do the killer clowns either. I also, like you, I don't do any type of Jesus horror, period, like any possessions, anything like that. It's too close.
It's too close. It's too close to honest reality. Like, I love slasher films. I love, the haunted houses and stuff like that, because that's like from afar. I love Halloween, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, like from Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger. Like, I love all of them because I know they don't exist, but
Right.
exorcisms and stuff do exist. And so Jesus horror definitely, like, I call it Jesus horror because I'm like The Nun, that movie,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I could barely make it through. So, and that's like, I've watched all of the Conjurings, all of Insidious, like all of those, but The Nun, I was like, oh, I can't,
Right.
no.
Make it through. I tried to watch, which I don't really like this movie, but The Skeleton Key, that whole possession thing, and like you've
Mhm.
got, you know what I mean, black
Yeah.
people who are descendants of slaves and the spirits and all that. I just don't mess with anything with the
Yeah.
spirits. Like it's
Yes.
just it's too close. I think it's the, you know what I mean, growing up in the church, like I just don't play those games. And so you can handle so much more than I can, which is, of course, makes complete sense. And I know we've tried to watch horror things together before. And I know you promised to take me to see Candyman because I'm going to be very, very scared. And I'm not going to be able to sleep. But I want to know, before I open up for more questions from the question box, because we have a lot of them, have you ever scared yourself when you're planning and plotting your twists and your scary settings? Have you ever been like, whoo, too much, and got to like chill?
Yeah, absolutely. I especially felt like during this pandemic because I've been alone so much, like just by myself, or either the dog is with me. Like I feel like there have been moments where I'm very deep into a scene and I'm working on it. And then all of a sudden, like something moves, or, I'm thinking too hard about it, or I've definitely had one or two nightmares about this book. Maybe because I was just so in it, like sometimes you just really jump into your character's shoes and it's like, okay, what would I do? So that's kind of a part of what I feel like has scared me. I was saying this story the other day, how like I was at highlights and I was sort of like doing the last kind of edits on this, and I was in a little cabin basically in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And I went to bed at like I just kind of like laid down at 2 a.m. And then all of a sudden I opened my eyes and it seemed like there was like a flashlight in the window. And I screamed, like I like blew. And of course it wasn't a flashlight. Because I honestly thought it was the killer. I thought that he was like here to kill me. But it wasn't a flashlight. It was actually a moon. It was a super moon. And it just happened to be like shining right in my window at that moment. And I was like, I don't deserve nice things. I don't, nature, like what? Like, no.
I know, but I do think that this is suffering for you, because the things that you do to people in your books really creates said suffering, where we're sleeping with our lights on because we're scared thinking about it. And this book not only has like such of the best atmosphere where my heart is racing, it also has a deeper level of sort of social consciousness. It's not just out to scare you. It has something else to say. It's like the ghost, like the things have something else to say. And I would love to talk to you about how intentionally you build your books with like the thriller elements, where it's like, yes, you're here to be entertained, but you're also here for something else as well. And each one of your books imparts a question about society and what's going on. And I would love for you to talk about how you do that, and especially the message and the question you leave behind for readers in White Smoke.
So in White Smoke, I really talk about gentrification and the way it actually impacts communities, particularly communities of color, because the book idea was also sort of sprung to life, basically, or was loosely inspired by a trip I took to Detroit. And it was the first time I've ever been there. And I witnessed or saw all of these homes that were abandoned, like straight up blocks, like fully abandoned. And as someone who lives in New York, where we're all on top of each other, I couldn't fathom all of this space. And Sunny is making all this noise.
Hi, Sunny.
Yeah, they're talking to you.
Sunny better be a ghost hunter, all I know. He's scared of everything, but he knows. Well, we should tell a story before you continue. Remember when we were in Atlanta in that haunted house? Make sure we tell that story once you're done. When we were in that haunted trap house together, no help. But anyways, okay, back to gentrification.
We'll talk about that as well too. But yes, I felt like I wanted to sort of like, I just couldn't understand why all these homes were empty. And I started talking to some of like, you know, the locals, and they told me a lot of urban legends, particularly an urban legend about Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween. And then as I started to like get more into it and do more research and like kept going deeper down a rabbit hole, I realized that very much like this was all very sinister. This was all very planned, even before the 2008 recession. Eight, yeah, eight, yeah. So I felt like I wanted to really touch upon that and sort of bring that to, you know, definitely a YA level, because I always want kids to understand and have all the facts on the table so that they can actually properly kind of make their own determinations of what is actually happening in their communities, or not even their own communities, their peers' communities. So I think that's something that I try to bring in all of my books. And sometimes, a lot of times it's unintentional. Sometimes we're in the middle of it because of basically most of my books are based loosely on cases. And when you look at people like as a whole, no one is actually like born evil. No one's born like with malicious intent. You have to be like raised and grow into that. What were like the elements that like brought you to this point, basically? And so I always sort of like go like backwards then from the case, and then going backwards to like, oh, maybe it was your environment, maybe it was a school, maybe it was the foster home that you were in. Like it really does like kind of depend on, you know, the circumstances that you were around. So no, I this is the first time I actually like intentionally went in there. Like, I know I'm going to talk about gentrification, but all my other books, I was, you know, already writing the story. And then I was like, oh, well, this is a part we should address this in some way.
I love that. And I love that you use real life cases and real life things that have happened as jumping off inspiration points for all of your novels. I just think it's super cool how you extrapolate from there. It shows me like you're a sponge of information, and then you're able to pick out things that you really like and braid them together and create something wholly new and wholly original from these little sparks. It's really great. I love it. And I love to see the things that you create from those sparks and how they manifest in lots of different ways. What I like about what you've been doing is that each one of your books is a Tiffany D. Jackson book, right? But they each feel different and wholly unique, right? Whether it's format, whether it's the way that you organize time, whether it's linear or not, how you go short, you know, in Grown, I love the pacing. You have short chapters.
Right.
In this, it's super atmospheric. It's both like Mari is your main character, but so is the setting, right? So you're doing, both jobs and both works at the same time. And I want you to look, Tiffany and I were in Atlanta, speaking of a setting, right, that I feel like really is resonant in White Smoke. We had gone to Atlanta. We were doing a little writing retreat for like 2 weeks. Oh my God, we were in this house. And I was like, there is something in this house. It was like a horror backyard. Remember that? I couldn't even go out in the backyard.
We were in a people's town in Atlanta. We were in this house, and I guess it didn't have a lot of good upkeep. So the yard looked like there was definitely bodies back there. And then at night, we would just hear things in the walls. My dog was there and he was going crazy. It was just a lot going on around this time. And I finally, like, I think maybe we stayed there, or I know I stayed there for about like 7 days before I was like, okay, nah, I can't do this anymore. Cause I don't know what it is. Like, I don't think it's rats, and I don't think it's anything else. So I burn sage every day at this place.
And the ghost in that house ran us out. Like literally, I was like, oh, I'm going to Nick Stone's house for the weekend. I can't sleep. There's something in my room, you know. And Sunny, the dog, he was not feeling it. And I really do think animals can really sense.
Which there is a dog in White Smoke, which is not like Sunny, but yes.
Yeah. Yes, there is. Okay, so there are so many questions. I'm going to jump into some of the questions.
Let's jump into some questions.
And okay, this is a great one. I want to talk about what are y'all's writing processes like, and how do you start to develop a storyline? This is for both of us. This is great. I would love to hear. I've seen you work, but it would be cool for you to talk it out.
So typically I outline. So I'm a filmmaker by trade. So I plan books like I plan scripts. And so I have to have out, I have to know what's happening basically. Cause I get distracted and I'll start writing about ponies and like, we're writing about killers. So that's like first and foremost. I tend to write kind of like a shell of an outline, and then I will know how much more I have to research, because typically I do a lot of research for my books. I talk to a lot of individuals and specialists that will like really help me understand and get into the mode of writing, or being in the mode of those character shoes. And then I typically sit down, I write the first draft, go through it again, send it to my editor. He usually sends back like his notes, and I typically print out that version, and I do like hand edits. So like if you ever see like my books are like, or my shelves, there's like a bunch of binders with like all of my books that I'm like, I just made every page bleed. And we
I've
keep
seen
going
you with
from
the
there.
pins.
Yes,
Yeah.
we just keep going from there. I will say that, as I continue, because I've come out with a book basically every year since 2017, or several books like this year.
Five.
I definitely try to push myself like creatively and challenge myself, which, is probably one of the reasons why every book looks different or sounds different.
Right.
But that's my general process.
Mine is similar. I would love to know if you know your twists and ending. I never know mine. I'm in the middle. So I can outline about 6 chapters at a time. I call myself a headlights writer. I can only see as far as the headlights. Otherwise, I'm in the dark fumbling around. So it's about 6 chapters at a time. And then I'm like, okay, how are we feeling? Where am I at? Add 6 more, then add 6 more. And get to the end, which if I was brilliant like you, I would sit down and figure everything out first. But sometimes I just don't know.
No, I don't typically. This book is the first time I knew, this is not even a spoiler, there's a plot twist. You already know. Y'all already know. If you're here, you already know.
There's a plot twist.
This is the first time I already knew there was a plot twist, because the case that's inspired by like made me realize that it in itself was a plot twist. Some cases are just like plot twists. But no, typically I don't know. I usually sort of like write, and it comes to me later, maybe in a 3rd or 4th draft. And so you're just sort of revising. I always tell the story about how like Monday's Not Coming, I woke up in the middle of the night with this idea for a plot twist, and I had to work all night to make the story like work. So that's something, but I do feel like with your books, there is, particularly with like Tiny Pretty Things or the newest one, Rumor Game, there's something to your writing where you have to keep going. So I could tell when you mean by like you work in like, those 6 chapter increments, because those 6 chapters, like you get to that like end and you're like, oh, okay, wait, no, I gotta keep on going.
I love it. It's the only way that I know how to control pace. And so Tiffany is a thriller queen. I do like little sort of twisty mysteries along with some fantasy, and I have a series called Tiny Pretty Things, which is also a Netflix series, a Netflix original series as well, based on the books. And then I have my next sort of twisty mystery social thriller that comes out in March of next year called The Rumor Game. And it follows 3 girls and the destructive path of a rumor, and how it wreaks havoc on their community. Mm-hmm. And I have to do the 6 chapter chunks so that I can track everything and keep thinking about things and keep ratcheting up the tension. And that's the only way I know how to do it, is to keep getting those pulse checks. Like, am I stressing everyone out? How do I keep raising the bar of stress level, twisting it, adding more questions that the reader has of the characters? And so it's a lot of fun. It's really hard to write these kinds of novels. It is. It's so hard because you're stressed, you're trying to stress out your reader, you're stressing out your characters. It's literally just a ball of stress. But they're a lot of fun, especially your twists that you have in your books are like, to where you're like, that gif where that man has his mouth open like for 10 minutes. It's like that, where you're like, I can't believe she just did this to me. I can't believe it. And you have to put the book down, you have to walk away, and you have to yell, and you have to come back, and you have to know how it all comes together. And so I love all of those things too. I think it's a lot of fun to like really hit your reader in the chest.
I mean, yeah, because what's the point of a boring book? Like
Right.
that's one thing. There's a lot of books that I read in high school that I don't remember at all because they were boring. Unless they were like beautifully written to the point where like they were poetic in a sense that like, I do absorb a lot of poetry. Like otherwise I have no clue what I read in high school, like depending on like who the teacher was. But I feel like if you give a book to a kid that actually like says something and it's also entertaining and that plot twist hit, you'll never forget the book and you'll never forget the lesson that's attached to that book. And so to me, I feel like that's worth it in a sense to like hit you upside the head. Like, cause even though it's like for kids, adults are also like learning a lot from our books. So
Exactly. I also think that your books especially can be read by all ages.
yeah,
There's something about the way that you create your worlds, and because they're based on these real world cases, that they have a level of depth to them that is just, it just
because
transcends
because
age.
a lot of us are still dealing with childhood wounds and we're still kind of like mothering ourselves in a sense. And so sometimes you're reading these novels to sort of go back to who you were back then. And you may not even have the answers to some of the questions that I'm posing in some of these books. So
Yep.
when there were so many women who came to me to read Grown, and because they also had those type of wounds and they wanted to go back and sort of like rethink, like re-strategize in their mind, like what would I have done differently if I had this book when I had it. So it really just, I mean, I feel like I can read anything. So,
Yep. And you write anything too. And this is a great question.
Mhm.
Who is your favorite, I'm going to just say horror mystery thriller writer currently?
Um,
Currently, I know. I know.
that's a hard
I've
one.
been reading our OG, Karen McManus, who I
Yeah,
love.
I love
Great.
Karen.
Karen, who did One of Us is Lying and all these
And
books.
and she has a series coming out in a couple of weeks on
On
Peacock.
Peacock, everyone get your subscription and get
Yes.
ready. I
Um,
love
I
Gretchen McNeil. If you've
Gretchen
ever read her.
McNeil is also another one. Daniela Vega, who wrote The Haunting.
Yes.
Yes.
That pink
That
book.
book literally made me like scream on a train. So awesome book. I guess adult Riley Sager. I just finished reading Survive the Night. That was really, it was like, talk about pacing. Jesus. That was so good. It was like, I could not stop reading. I had to like speed up like the audiobook because I read a lot of books on audiobook. So I'd like speed it up because I was like, what is happening? Also, Grady Hendrix wrote My Best Friend's Exorcism. I don't know if that's adult or teen because it is set in a teen setting, but it's crazy. So I think those are some, just to give
Yeah.
some examples out.
And there's such great thrillers that are out in the market right now, especially if you want to be scared. I think that I have to really space out my scary factor because I have a very vivid imagination. It stays with me for a very long time and I won't be able to sleep. And I have to really figure out how to deal with that. There's a funny question here that we might as well just answer because it's talking about, do you plan on or hope to collaborate with other authors anytime soon? And I really don't know that.
So we recently collaborated on Blackout, which,
Yeah.
yes, and this book is written by Dhonielle Clayton, who you see here, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. It is a collection, well, not a collection. It is a book with love stories because we just wanted to write about love in New York City. So that was a huge collaboration in the middle of a pandemic. And it was really great to like write a book with my friends. It was probably the best group project I've ever had. So yeah, it was fun, and especially for someone like me who just writes about dark stuff all the time. I needed to like write about like kids like kissing and just like, go down memory lane about like how I feel.
Also, don't forget that you did try to put a rat in the story or some sort. She tried to bring the horror to the love story. Literally this big love story. She's like, well, we need a rat or we need something in the dark. And I was like, Tiffany, please let me live in this idea that there are no rats in New York City, but it happens. There's a good question about the show Fear Factor, and I'm very curious too. Would you survive?
No.
Have you ever watched it? Would you survive Fear
No.
Factor?
No.
Even though you write books like this, you won't survive Fear Factor?
Because there are like episodes where they like have to like put their hand in something, and like that consists of bugs, and I just feel like no, like no, like, and then also like my reflexes, like the way I am wired, like I go kicked off the show. So no, that's a big no.
I would never. I'd pass out in one of the events. I'd be like, oh no,
Yeah.
I'm out. Just disqualify me. But because you write so many scary things, I thought your fortitude would have been stronger.
No. Mm-mm. I'm safe in my apartment.
You're safe in your apartment with you and Sunny, because Sunny's pretty scared of a lot of things. I feel like Sunny and I have similar energy. We're scaredy cats.
Yes.
So it's why we love each other. Another one I think that's really good. I want to know what your favorite, you only get one, maybe I'll give you three favorite horror movies.
Carrie, number one, The Strangers, and I'm gonna go with Halloween, just as a classic.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Halloween. I used to love like Scream, even though, because it was corny. Like I was scared at first, and then I was like, wait, this is corny. Okay. Like, and I have to get through that. One that I hate is Leprechaun.
You always talk about this. And I'm like, how do you take this seriously?
Because that man was scary. Tiffany, at the same time, we were watching that at like 8 and 9. That's scary, that little leprechaun. You didn't think he was scary?
It just was gross looking to me. I was like, can someone just kick him? Like,
I was terrified. And maybe because me and the leprechaun are on the same eye level, I just knew that I would be taken out. I was scared of him.
Even right now. Okay.
Look, I was very scared. So like, I can remember viscerally that. Carrie was just like, I felt so terrible for her. It was just so like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to her.
Absolutely. Actually, I could talk about that too. So my next book that's going to come out next year is actually kind of like a Carrie story. It is called The Way to Blood. It takes place in Georgia. It's about a girl who had been passing for white for most of her life and is exposed by her racist school. And the school, trying to turn their image around, decide to host their very first integrated prom. But of course, things go wrong at this prom. Which is like, we talk about research. So I've been, just kind of explaining how I do a lot of research, and I actually infiltrated a telekinesis group to sort of like understand how telekinesis works and how they can move things with your mind. And to the point where I really was like, at some point, especially like in the midst of the pandemic, where I was just in here like for like 4 days straight, I was like looking at pens like, but can I move this? Like, I'm like, oh, Tiffany, come on, like, just get your life together. Like, I definitely had those moments. I'm working on it now. It's gonna be great. I'm really excited about it.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm already ready to be scared again. I just feel like this one too it's both the social horror, it's the, you know what I mean, the thing that lives inside me already. As a Black woman, like I'm going to be scared. You're like taking that plus what she has to deal with. It's going to break us all.
I hope.
Literally. And every time, what you all don't know, every time I complain and say, Tiffany, I feel broken by this book, like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. You're like, but did you die? And I'm like, yes, my soul died in the moment. I had to refresh myself. Like I had to read.
Like, you still living, like, anyway.
It's scary. It's scary, but I mean, can't stop reading. And I love this book so much. And if you could touch on, for our last question, this cover is so evocative. It's terrifying. It has such a beautiful, like you're walking past and you're like, okay, what's that? What's going on? The house is hidden. I'm already, it sets the tone. It sets the barometer. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on the cover, how you directed it, or what you wanted, all of those things.
So for all my covers, I usually send a mood board that usually kind of gives like inspirational images, color. I usually assign color stories to all of my characters. So this character is purple, this character is pink, and sort of, loosely kind of, bringing together, like putting imagery to the book. And I usually send it in to my editor, who shares it with the design team. They're so amazing, Aaron Fitzsimmons. And this cover was actually designed by Jeff Manning, who is on Instagram. I think it's like Jeff Manning, like _ he's designed this cover. He also designed the cover for The Awakening of Malcolm X, which is a book I had come out this past January. Just an amazing, yes. But they just nail it every single time. But I think, it also, I always feel like it's a team effort, because I'm giving them sort of like, here are the tools. Here is what I would like. But do like play with creatively, and they did here. I really love that there's like a house like right underneath. I love the smoke, of course, because I want it, and I love the fact that she's a young girl with natural hair. The model actually, I don't know if anyone on here uses this app called Style Seat to like schedule like hair appointments. The model is actually one of the icons on Style Seat. I randomly like was booking with my hairdresser, and I was like, that girl looks familiar. And I was like, this whole picture looks familiar. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yes, that's a fun little tidbit there.
And it just, you're in trouble when you open this book, when you see that cover. Yes. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble here, and I need to saddle up and allow myself to have this experience. And it's just, you have won the cover jackpot, I do have to say.
I like, when it comes to covers, I fully believe that I'm very blessed here, because I've seen some covers in my life that I'm like, whoa, no, man. So I've been very blessed with, the fact that people actually like, the team actually reads the books. I think that's really rare. Some people will just be like a title and be like, here it is, and then like not like kind of go like a little deeper with it. So I'm really fortunate and very grateful, basically, to the entire Harper team for just always stepping up and helping me.
And making sure it sets the tone for your work, and it sets an aesthetic and a promise to your reader. And I feel like you have established through all of your books a promise to your reader. One, you're about to be wrecked, right? Like that's like promise number one. Two, it might leave you with some things to think about, some deep things, which is something I love about your work. And three, it's a good ride, right? Like you can always be like, oh, we need this for book club. We need to discuss this. And those three ingredients make for such a beautiful Tiffany D. Jackson book, wrapped in a delicious cover. I mean, you guys aren't ready for the weight of blood, I'll tell you that. I will tell you that. I have seen some things, even if you hit the Cash app, I won't even tell you. It's going to, you keep just, upping the ante. And I love that you're doing horror. I love you're fully descending into this scary place and terrorizing the world with your wonderful brain.
That's what I'm trying to do. We got
Clown will be your fourth novel?
No, absolutely not.
Your third horror novel? No?
I don't really know what that would be, but absolutely not clowns. We got 5 minutes. Do you want to take one more question?
Okay, I'll take one more question. Let's see. There are so many. Some of them we have already answered. Do you want to talk about, today you shared your day in the life of yourself, like on your release day. And I want you to talk about your daily writing process and like how you deal with not having motivation or, my writing process is a mess right now, which means no writing is getting done. So I'm curious about what's happening in your life with your writing process.
So I'm very big on lists. I'm very big on schedules. I'm like, I'm meticulous about my calendar, is why I'm always like, wait, what date did you tell me? Because if I always overbook or double book or whatever the case is. So I'm very much about like keeping to that schedule. And I saw this joke running around on Twitter or Instagram or something like, if you have a meeting in the middle of the day, your whole day is gone. And that is exactly it. If there is a 1 o'clock meeting anywhere, my whole day is gone. So usually those days are the days I kind of like leave for like emails, updating my website, all that kind of stuff. But typically my day goes, depending on like what I'm writing, is I wake up, I usually answer any like urgent emails, particularly around like, launch dates. So making sure I'm like in communication with my publicist or my editor. Then I typically start writing. I have lunch. I write some more. Sometimes, depending, because I also suffer from chronic migraines. So, sometimes, some days I can't do anything, or some afternoons it's like a 4-hour nap. And then I wake up at 8 and I have to write because I have to like keep up with my word count. We use this, or I use Scrivener, which kind of gives us a set date of when
You do?
yeah, I use Scrivener.
I never knew that. I just
Yeah,
can't.
I use Scrivener. It's a writing program that usually like kind of breaks up things, and you can like hop around chapters and stuff like that, which is something I really needed when I'm first drafting. That first draft, like that 0 draft, is what I use Scrivener for. So I work in Scrivener to just get the draft out, but then once the draft is exported and it's in Word, I'm never using Scrivener again. But Scrivener allows me to know how many words a day I need to write in order to meet whatever my goal is. And that like that tracker itself alone like pays for itself. So I know that if I skip like today's like writing session, I know I have to double up the next day, or like kind of like moving it like around like that. And then there's also like the research part of it. So sometimes I'm taking calls, or I'm like chasing down a lead or something. I've been trying to talk to this I'm blanking on the word, person that works in like the morgue.
Mortuary. I'm
Yeah,
mortician.
yeah, I'm trying to like talk to him about this particular case that I would like to work on. And he's like impossible to get in touch with because of course we're in the middle of a pandemic and
Yeah.
he's busy. So, but like the one day he called me, like I was doing something. So then I'm now trying to like chase him down because he's particularly the mortician who worked on this particular case. So it's sometimes about just like, having a day where I go to the library, or I'm looking up stuff, or I'm like literally sitting on YouTube trying to understand how something works. Or for instance, that next book, there's like a football player in it. I know nothing about football, so I have to sit down and watch Friday Night Lights to understand what the hell is happening.
I mean, that's so hard because that man is very attractive. One of that, yeah, it's such hard research work for you to
hard
watch.
research, yes.
Oh, it's just your burden.
Oh my gosh.
To watch that show. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. And you write more in the morning? Because I'm a evening late night writer.
I'm a morning writer. Not as early as I used to, because before, when I was still working in television, I used to wake up at 5 o'clock every morning. I was definitely the 5 a.m. writers club. I would write there. I used to write on sets. There's like a hilarious picture of me at a BET Awards because I finished my job. So I was just sitting there waiting for the BET Awards to be over. So I put my headphones on and I was writing like literally behind the stage while everyone was performing. And so there's this picture of me that's clearly, it looks like I'm just typing. And yes, that is me writing. So I have found, and oftentimes I'm writing on my phone, the Notes app. We talked about that the other night. I have like a solid like 6,000 little individual notes in the Notes app. Yeah. So I'm like a Gray's writer. Like I'll just write like maybe a paragraph here and there. And then once I like kind of like know like, all right, it's time to sit down.
It'll accumulate.
Yes. So it accumulates over time. So there is I just noticed it that there was a note in the Notes app that I wrote from 2018 that's finally in this book in 2021.
Some things have to percolate. They have to grow. They have to like cook for a while. Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that that's like the writing process. Like people think that like all this is supposed to happen overnight. No, like you're supposed to marinate your food. Like we're Black. We marinate our food, we season, we make sure that it tastes good before we just throw it out on a plate. Like, no, I need to make sure that my book is digestible at least.
And that it's fully thought through. It's deeply considered.
Yes.
You want it to feel like a satisfying meal from the first bite to the last bite. And that is what a Tiffany D. Jackson book does. It is amazing. And I love you. I love your work. And I was so happy to have you, to be able to talk to you about White Smoke. I've been harassing you about it.
Last minute. And thank you everyone for coming. We very much appreciate you.
And we'll send all the good vibes to Maureen Johnson.
Yes.
And I hope I did her justice. I know she's also a mystery queen, so you'll have to do it again with her.
Yes, absolutely.
I adore you. Everybody have a great Wednesday. Happy hump day. And I hope you're terrified by White Smoke. Be sure to grab your copy and tweet about all of the feelings that you have and get ready for Halloween.
And I will try to respond to the feelings.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes. Maybe.
Bye.